All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Fuck Wellness. It's just me today, Mallory, all by my lonesome. But I have two great people with me today. As you all know, our theme this month is outdoor spaces and access and education. We kind of just added every word onto outdoors that we could that was relevant. But I think that today will be a really great conversation because I selected two complete strangers, people I've just never met before onto the podcast. Just kidding. They're not strangers. One is my mom and one is my mom's best friend, Terri, both of which I've known obviously since my birth for my mom and pretty much my birth for Terri. So it's quite a pleasure to have both of them on. They have lots of experience in the outdoors and working in the outdoor industry. And I think that they will bring a really interesting perspective to this whole conversation. So welcome to the pod, Terri and Jean Mom. I always say welcome to the pod, their name. And then it was like, do I say mom?
Whatever you want to call me. All right. I'll come to it.
Amazing. Well, I was just hoping that maybe you both could start by doing a little bit of an introduction of yourself and maybe a little bit about your history, who you are, what you would want the listeners to know. We can start with you, Mom.
Okay, so I grew up in Michigan and went to business school, grad school, undergrad, grad school, and then really determined that I wanted to move out west because I wanted to be more outdoorsy. And people in Michigan aren't really very outdoorsy. So,
well, and was there a boy, Mom? Yeah, I was like, was there a boy involved?
He was a rock climber, and so he kind of exposed it to me during business school. And so I moved out and actually lived with him and his family in Southern California until I got my first job, which was with the North Face, and worked there for maybe a year. Then they had a big layoff. Then I got a job with Patagonia, which was great. And this was like mid 80s now. And then that's where Terri comes in, but we'll tell that later. And then, I went to work for Deckers after some world travel and did that for quite a while, marketing in all of these jobs. And then, got married, had Mallory, did a whole career change to nursing because I felt like I was tired of selling products and wanted to be in more of a helping profession. So went back to school. It was like 9 years total to end up with my master's in nursing. So anyway, I'm still a nurse and enjoying that. And but the outdoors has been kind of my big passion for all of my adulthood, really. And I just kind of love, all sorts of things, not just one thing in the outdoors. And mostly, as life goes on, I realize it's the friends that I do things with that really make it fun, friends and family. So I'd say that sums me up pretty well.
All right, Terri, to you.
Hey, my turn. I'm mesmerized. I need to snap out of this. My name's Terri Lane, and I was born in Phoenix, Arizona. We're a very non-outdoorsy family. And I think my dad, born in another era, would have been a big outdoorsman, but he grew up, he's an immigrant family and grew up in a small, in New York City and basically a tenement building. So that just wasn't on his agenda. Then went through the Depression. So I think I just knew I loved the outdoors from a really early age. My dad was a photographer. He did a lot of work for Arizona Highways. So I got to go on a lot of road trips with him, and I loved getting away and being in those wild, beautiful places. And then when I went to college at Arizona State University, I met my husband, Alex, and he was very outdoorsy and took me on a lot of camping trips. And I just took to it right away. And it's like, this is the life I really want to live, and just really enjoyed it. Then I moved to California, finished my degree at Art Center College of Design in Pasadena in photography, and moved up to an avocado ranch. and was a ranch hand for a year. Just decided I didn't want to work for a while, and I just did fun things like puttering around the ranch and, making jams. And, I was 23 years old, and it was fun. And then Alex and I went on a bicycle trip for 3 months through the western part of the United States, covered over 3,000 miles. And that was kind of the start or a continuation of my outdoor education, so to speak. And soon after that, I started working for a color lab, which kind of dovetailed into my education of photography. But I met Jean on a bicycle ride in the Carrizo Plain, the wildflower century. And that kind of changed the course of my life in a big way. Actually, Alex started working at Patagonia for a couple of years. And then in 1986, I got a job through Jean at Patagonia, and I've been there now for almost 37 years, and am one of the founders of the Patagonia Historical Archives. And I'm doing a lot of curation work now, and fitting in a lot of time being a grandmother and working and doing outdoors adventures.
Any recent outdoor adventures, Terri?
Outdoor fun, right?
Yeah, fun.
Miserably awesome fun.
Yeah, for context.
Yeah, maybe a little suffering involved, but
yeah, for context, we all, along with Ryan, my uncle Doug, and my friend Meredith, we all went on a backpacking trip. Let's see, a week ago. Yeah.
Okay.
Which had some joys and had some lows, as all backpacking trips do. So we are uniquely qualified to talk about the outdoors this week because we were very much in them.
Right. And we've always, through my son who also does backpacking, he coined the term miserably awesome, which really describes backpacking to a T.
Yeah, maybe that will be the name of this episode. Well, I was hoping that, Terri, you kind of touched on it. You could talk a little bit about how you both first met and how that has influenced your relationship with the outdoors. I think the fact that you met in such a, outdoorsy way and then continued that is really cool. And I feel like a core part of your friendship has been your love for the outdoors. So I was hoping we could hear a little bit more about that.
Sure. Well, like I said, I met Jean. I was at that time riding a lot of centuries and double centuries, and I was on a bike ride out in the Carrizo Plain, the wildflower century, and probably halfway through, I ran into Jean and another employee at Patagonia, Sharon, and we ended up finishing the ride together. And learned that we were both all from Ventura, and it just kind of started this big friendship. Jean and I immediately clicked, and we started riding. I started riding with her after work and with a bunch of other Patagonia employees, and hanging out at the place she lived near the beach when she, was living with all these climbers, and Jean was basically badass. I knew that right away, and yeah, we've been best pals ever since and have done a lot of stuff together.
Yes, we have. No, I was so impressed with Terri when I first met her because she was so strong on her bike. And I remember we, exchanged phone numbers and then set up a time to ride, I think that next week. And I still have a memory of you powering up Denison Grade. I think we did like that Ojai Santa Paula loop. Like
after I was retired,
7-mile ride after work, but those were those days. And yeah, you were just like climbing that long hill so strongly. I was like, wow, she is really tough. And I was like trying to keep up with you. But
you have to remember, Jane, that I was retired at that time. I had a year retirement, so I did a lot of bike riding.
Yeah. Wait, were you a yoga teacher or something then, or a fitness or
a yoga? But I did teach. I totally forgot about it, but I did teach aerobics class at a little gym.
That was it.
Yeah, using my little cassette tape. And yeah, I don't think that lasted very long, but it was a fun diversion for a couple of months.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that, yeah, you were an aerobics instructor, and I was pretty impressed with that too. Um, but yeah, we did a lot of cycling together. We did at least one double century together, and yeah, lots of hiking, and then more recently the backpacking. So yeah, we have a long history of doing lots of different things outside. That was kind of the way we would spend time together, other than when we got together with our husbands. But yeah, it was a lot of the outdoors.
There's always kind of friendly competition too. Like Jean and I have like the exact same build. They're like sisters, you know. And
Yeah.
when we'd climb hills or anything we did, we were pretty close in,
Yeah.
you know, in strength to each other. So our wheels would always be like this, and
Yeah.
soon
Yeah.
we would just be egging each other on. And yeah, always very friendly competition.
Yes, but compatible.
Yeah.
Do you want to
Yeah,
talk
so
maybe?
those,
Oh, go ahead, Mom.
oh, I was just going to say those years when we were both at Patagonia were really fun too, because I guess we only overlapped by a couple of years, but yeah, just having like such a great friend right there, you know, to do things with, you know, every day at work and then after work. And yeah, that was really fun.
Yeah, lunchtime rides.
Mhm.
Well, Mom, you kind of got right into the question I was going to ask, which is, I feel like if I didn't know you, I would be really curious what those early years at Patagonia were like, you know, working in the outdoor industry before it was what it is today. Like, what was it like then? What was it like working at Patagonia, you know, really when it was still in the early stages before it became what we all know it to be today?
Well, it was very, well, it was very young. And what was so fun is that it seemed like everybody was in their 20s there that worked there. So we all just lived the same kind of life where we wanted to be outdoors, you know, kind of the work hard, play hard, do things at lunch outdoors, do things after work outdoors, go to movie and dinner at night. I mean, it really couldn't have been better because your friends and your, you know, out of work, you know, your friends at work were also your friends out of work. And I moved to Ventura not knowing a single person. So it really, that group at Patagonia became my friend group, including Terri and Alex. So yeah, it was very social in those years. You know, it probably has changed. You know, I left in 87. So Terri has seen the evolution way more than I have. But yeah, just the whole place there. And Evo, I remember there were some jokes about there being so many women that worked there. Do you remember that, Terri? Like Evo really believed in like female power, and you know, had a woman CEO at the time, and most all of the high ups in the company were women. So that was pretty cool that it was so woman powered.
Yeah, I think at that time, like 70% of positions were occupied by executive positions were occupied by women. And that's definitely changed. I think we've struggled with that. And the other thing that was interesting about Patagonia in that era was that we just hired our friends. You know, that's how I got a job there. Now it's so hard to get a job there. You've got to have like master's degrees, and it's very different now. And I think it's kind of changed the nature of the company too. But as you grow and get big, you know, it's a necessity. As we matured from a really adolescent company to a grown-up company, you know, you need people who have very specific skills, and very, what I see now is very narrow skills. At that time, you know, people were in production positions that were, you know, geologists and just had all varying types of degrees, French majors. It just didn't really matter. They were all friends. It was part of a tribe.
Yeah, one of my favorites was Ernie, who was a retired airline pilot and became our production manager.
Yeah.
But he was great and loved the outdoors. Everybody loved him. But yeah, it's like not exactly what they would do today.
Yeah. Speaking a little bit about more today is, you know, now now we are trying to bring more justice and equity into the outdoors and diversity. And of course, we saw that when we were hiking in, this past weekend. You just don't see any diversity out on the trail. So, that's been a challenge because a lot of people who grow up in, low income environments don't have that opportunity growing up. So, before we used to really look for people who had a lot of outdoor skills. So we've really had to kind of look and change the way we hire people.
Yeah, definitely the wilderness. Mallory and I did the John Muir Trail 4 years ago, and we were on the trail for 23 days, and just like very little diversity. It made us realize how white a lot of that space is. And I guess, it does take money. There's a lot of gear involved, and but I think a lot of it too is just exposure. A lot of populations aren't exposed to the outdoors, and how, bonding it can be, and, how good you can feel when you're out there, and just the challenges. And, but yeah, there's a lot of work to be done in that area.
Yeah, I think Patagonia is, tackling that head on right now.
I feel like for me, even just on the gear conversation, I've recently started climbing, and I had to drop about, $400 to get all of the climbing stuff. Like, and to be clear, like I could have gotten the cheapest thing, the cheapest shoes, the cheapest, harness, all of that. But I have the ability to spend a little bit more to get, the better things. But it was kind of wild to me. Like, most people can't spend that kind of money to even be like entered into that kind of space. So I think that you're right, Mom. It is a mix of the financial barrier. But then I think that there's some people that wouldn't even think about rock climbing because they haven't even been exposed to it. So I think that there's lots of, if we look at like, a public health, like concept of like a socio-ecological model, like there's so many of those barriers to even learning about the activity in the first place, based on like environmental, social, familial, community like barriers that they are experiencing. So, and that can be anywhere in the country. Like you could live in Boulder and still not fully have exposure to a lot of things. So I think it really can depend on a lot. And in the first pod of the month, I talked a lot about how like every positive memory of my childhood has to do with the outdoors. Like really, like 95% of them, if it goes from the like Whitney Portal trips I took with my dad to like Mom taking me to all the parks. Like, I feel like that is such a deep part of who I am. And I know that, for you too, the outdoors is such a crucial part of who you are, but sometimes it's wild to think that like, that's not a core part of people, but it's not. And that's okay. But I want everyone to have the option to make it a part of their lives.
Right. Well, we even see in Ventura County, there's a lot of school children have never been out to the islands before. It's like right off our coast. It's an amazing national park, and they've never visited it before. So, and really spent much time outside of Ventura County. So that's, that type of opportunity that you have with a family who's got some, resources at hand, can really change the way you grow up, or going to summer camp and those type of things.
Yeah, my nephew's starting college this fall, and there's this, I think it's called Adventure Bound, or maybe that's what your program is, but where you go early and then you do like 10 days of, you can pick like rafting, hiking, kayaking, I don't know, climbing. You have these different choices. And that seems like just a great way to get kids who might not, if you can get them to sign up for it, who might not have done something like that, to get exposed to the outdoors. And then they can join clubs, during college that will get them out even more. And I know, Mallory, you're involved in that at GW too.
Yeah. And I really like, I'm like more recently involved with our outdoor education program at GW, but they do things like gear rentals, like free gear rentals for students. So if you and your friends want to go hiking in Shenandoah for the weekend, like they will rent out gear to you for free for the weekend. So it's like, I like that there's not, there's the financial barrier of going to GW, which obviously is a significant one. But if you can get past that, you do at least break down some of that by having this group on campus that does lead pretty inexpensive trips also for students if they want more of a guided experience. And to be honest, like biggest regret of my undergraduate career is not getting more involved in this group. I always, now being the staff advisor for the group, I always joke with them, like, I can't think of a student organization that's more in line with who I am as a person. And I'm just not sure like why I didn't get involved with them. But yeah, I think that it's really great that universities are investing in outdoor education and adventure, because I think for a lot of students, even if it just starts with apple picking, like if that is their first experience with outdoors, that can be sort of a gateway to like, okay, I did apple picking. Maybe I'll go on this day-long hike in Rock Creek Park. Okay, that went pretty well. Now I will go on maybe a day-long hike to a, waterfall in Shenandoah. Okay, that went pretty well. Like, sometimes it can be just like little bites of the exposure over time can make those positive experiences.
Yeah, and then I like the connection between if you expose people and then they appreciate the outdoors and they want to be outdoors more, then I think they're going to be more likely to embrace environmentalism and, protecting the environment, acknowledging climate change, the kind of things that Patagonia is really into, which Terri knows very well. Because that's a lot of what you work on, I know. But, which is good for the earth, just the more people we get outdoors, the more they're gonna, love it and then care about it. And that's
wasn't there a saying, you can't protect what you don't love? And, and if you haven't ever had that experience, you're not going to have that connection to want to protect something. And I've been on the board of Los Padres Forest Watch, which is a local nonprofit, for the last 10 years. Their mission is to protect our local Los Padres National Forest backcountry. And we've actually been dealing with access issues too, because we have a large Hispanic population here in Ventura County. And many of them have never been to the outdoors. They don't know, when they do get outdoors, they don't know how to behave or, how to leave no trace. So we're really starting programs to get especially young people out, because they're the ones who are going to grow up to, undo this mess that, our generation is leaving. So it's really important that that happens at this point.
I always think back to the final days of the John Muir Trail and how, at Guitar Lake, there was just so much toilet paper and poop everywhere because that area is so trafficked that it's almost like every inch of non-rock is like someone's excrement is there. And it was really sad because you're in this like stunning, beautiful place, but and I want people to go back there. And obviously we have biological needs, but those are things that I think we all have to start thinking about is, their solution was, the poop in the bag kind of thing, which is like fine and doable. And, if that's the solution, great. But I think that's going to start happening as like the outdoors keeps being trafficked. And I think it's just kind of the beginning of, we need to think of long-term solutions to some of these access issues.
Yeah, I think COVID has also exacerbated these problems because, of course, in the last couple of years, I think the outdoors has seen a huge increase in usage, from people buying sprinter vans and just camping, but not really having any experience on how to leave no trace, and a lot of people in the backcountry. So lot of education to go on there.
Terri, this actually leads me into just a question that we hadn't thought about, but I feel like you and Mom might have good answers to it. But like, what do you wish people who maybe are new to the outdoors knew before they went? Like, what are some things that you would want them to know in advance? Mom, if you have thoughts on this too, feel free to jump in.
I don't know. I think for me, it's the leave no trace that people really need to understand how their actions when they're outdoors impact others. And, there's not a garbage truck coming along behind them to pick things up, and just the way they behave to see beyond their immediate needs. But that takes education too. I understand that. Like if you've never been on a backpacking trip, or, been in the outdoors very much, you're not going to know that, because you're going to behave how you do at home. There's a trash truck that comes and picks up your garbage every week, or there's a toilet you can use. I don't think people sometimes think beyond their own immediate needs, but that takes education.
Yeah, I think some of it's like parents, getting their kids out into the trails, but setting an example, of not, eating a candy and then, oh, your wrapper flies away. Oh, well, that kind of thing. And yeah, same with the waste disposal is a problem. And I think legitimately people have a lot of questions about, what do you do? Say you're out on a hike and you have to poop. I mean, do you just bury your toilet paper or not? Or, how, people don't really know how far from water they should go, before they pee, or, so, and, about fires, I think there's still, a lot of confusion about, where you can build fires and where not, where there's fire hazards. So yeah, it's almost like you want some basic outdoor skills, or outdoor, the kind of leave no trace ethic taught in school, so that people carry it with them for their life, learn it in middle school or in the health class, in ninth grade or something, because it's like, how else do you really learn it unless you have a parent or somebody that you're with that models it? That's a hard one.
Mom, do you want to maybe describe for the listeners Alex's poop mixture idea?
Alex has a lot of good ideas. All the way hiking out, I thought about his comment on don't step on roots. And, there were a lot of roots, but I thought about it when I was walking over them and stepping carefully. That was one of his tips, is try not to walk on tree roots if you can possibly avoid them when they're on your trail. But, his thought was, dig a bit of a hole, and then do your thing, and then stir it up, maybe pee on top of it, stir it up, get a stick, stir it up, mix some dirt in with it, some leaves, any kind of debris that's around it. And we had a lot of fun doing that, didn't we, Mallory? Seeing as we seem to always use the bathroom together.
It was quite an adventure.
So you would leave it, not looking like really anything had happened there. So I thought that was great. He inspired me.
And just, yeah, go ahead.
So I was just going to say, I'll let him know. He'll be happy.
We were inspired.
We listened.
Yeah, I did once. I read a book about burning your toilet paper, how you should do that. And I was in the wilderness, and a wind came just as I had lit the match to burn my toilet paper. And I just felt like I almost burned the woods down, like it could have done that. And that just scared me so much that I would never burn my toilet paper again. It just made me realize how, you have some like dry pine needles near your hole and right near the toilet paper, and it can just, they're so combustible that it could really take off. So don't recommend that.
And just for the listeners to know, we do pack out our toilet paper in case, I'm sure that was a hot question people are thinking, but Yeah, we all take a shit and then we wipe. See, Mom, I say wape instead of wipe, and wape is not a word. And I've Googled it and I'm disappointed because I feel like I'm going to lose every battle on that. But I wipe and then we put it in a bag and we take it out with us. So if you are backpacking, we highly recommend doing that. Rather than preferably like just leaving it there. I think packing it out is generally best practice.
And we keep hand sanitizer in another bag outside the poop bag so that we can sanitize as soon as we do all that. This is the nurse talking.
Yeah, thank you, Mom, for clarifying.
That is definitely the nurse talking. I have to admit, I never use hand sanitizer. I think it builds up your microbe system. Sorry, I wasn't cooking for you, so that's a good thing.
LOL. Mom, do you want to talk a little bit about your love for parks and how important they are to maybe that beginning of exposure?
Yes, I am a big park lover, and I just heard on NPR the story about urban parks in Detroit and how they're trying to get people out more and more facilities in the parks. And that just really warmed my heart. And my brother, Greg, who's an urban forester, he even takes it to the point of he believes that cemeteries are great, that, people should get buried in the ground because that preserves green space, and a cemetery, is park-like. I mean, people should go there and play and walk and enjoy the outdoors. So I don't necessarily go that far, but when Mallory was little, like one of my joys, I would just look at a map and pick out, I never knew Ventura had so many parks, but we would go to a different one every day and check them out. I talked to other moms. Oh, have you been to this one? And it was just always a pleasure. An organization that Mallory's dad is involved in, the Ventura Land Trust, has opened a canyon, Harmon Canyon, and it's got miles and miles of trails and, some vistas with benches. And it is so popular for hikers and mountain bikers. And it didn't exist a few years ago. And then they just got another windfall from the state, like $7 million to do the same thing, like protect these areas, but also make them accessible to people. It's free. Anyone can go there, park for free, use it for free. On all of the hills above Ventura where we live. So a big area, a huge area, way bigger than Harmon Canyon even. So I just think that's going to really add a lot. It adds so much to any community just to have these free open spaces.
This is your reminder to support your local land trust. Look up your land trust and support it.
Yeah.
I feel like I have so many positive memories of being a kid and going, I'm going to say this right, Arroyo Verde. All my friends used to make fun of me because I'd say Verde instead of Verde. Anyway, but that's a public park in Ventura, and one that is, maybe my mom's favorite, but I have been going there since I was super little. I had my cross country there. I've had birthday parties there. We had dinners there. And I just think that having access to even just spaces like that can make such a difference in your life. I mean, Arlington has amazing parks, and it's one of the things that I really like about Arlington. Like, I don't know if I could live in an area that didn't have parks. And I feel like, that's a very privileged thing of me to say, but it really is like such an important part of my well-being is having access to these. Like, actually, literally just before this podcast, I went on a walk talking to my friend, and I was like, I could do my neighborhood route, which is a walk that I do frequently. But I was like, I think I need some trees. So I did a different loop that takes me through this like really beautiful park with a river that goes past it. And that was such a joy. So I feel like for me, that access to public parks has always been like a little shot of the outdoors in a day-to-day life that maybe you might not get if you didn't have those parks, because we can't go to the Sierras every day like realistically, so we have to make do with what we have.
Yeah, we even had our rehearsal dinner at Arroyo Verde Park before our wedding. That's how much I loved it.
Mom, I see that you have on this list the story of the cow attack. Are you going to share that on the pod?
Yeah, I think we should talk about that. This is one of my most harrowing adventures that I've had with Terri, and I'm still suffering from PTSD whenever I see cows and I cling onto her arm like a little
She's
baby.
actually not joking though. Like, we've had to turn around on hikes because she's seen like just the outline of a cow up ahead.
Yeah, so Terri and I were walking up another great free open space. Now that you mention it, the Sulphur Mountain Road, close to cars. It's like a 9-mile dirt road that's gorgeous, rolling up and down and through, hills and trees. And anyway, we walk it frequently, and we were just maybe a mile or two up it, and a woman walking down said, "Oh, there's some crazy cows up ahead." And so we were like, okay, well, when we see the cows, we'll stop and suss out the situation. So we got to where we could see some cows up ahead, and we stopped, we're wise. And there were several of them facing us, and we just kind of stood there talking about what we should do. And one of them separated from the others and started moving toward us. And Terri, who is a lot quicker and wiser than I am, she ducked off the road down into the, I don't know, it was very kind of rough, scrubby land below the road, but she dropped off the road down into the weeds there. And I just stood there thinking, oh, this cow's going to stop. But meanwhile, he's like running toward me. And I just kind of stood there thinking, this can't really be happening. He's not coming for me. Like, why would he be charging me? And finally, at the last minute, I did what Terri did, jumped over this kind of berm and scooted down the hill a bit. And he ran right over to where I had gone off the road and had his feet up on this berm. And he was shaking his head and his horns like this and kind of pawing. And I just stood there cowering. And then he lunged at me, and I moved back behind the tree so I could kind of hide from him out of sight. And he stood there a while longer, and then he eventually ambled away. I scooted down through the weeds toward Terri, and then we took off walking down. But it was absolutely terrifying to have this giant cow come running toward you. I mean, I just have never been the same around cows ever since then.
I have to
Right,
say,
Terri?
yeah, right. I still am ashamed of this till this day of, kind of abandoning you. I mean, we were in this together, and I saw this cow coming towards us, and I just took off. It's like every man for himself. Good luck, Jean.
I never thought of it that way, Terri. You were the wise one. I felt kind of stupid after the fact.
Yeah. Oh, well. I'm glad we both made it through, but yeah, I think you're a little bit more traumatized than I was by that event. I'm still I can get very scared when I see cows, but I haven't turned around on a hike before, except for with you. It's been, I realized that it was a little bit deeper, but you had the cow right on top of you.
Well, I have talked to other people about cow attacks since then, and a number of people I know have had attacks by cows. Yeah. And the stories are quite scary. Yeah. So
even the author Oliver Sacks, he writes a book about being disabled by a cow and kind of what that experience was. He got gored in the leg by a bull in Switzerland.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, it's pretty common when you look up the numbers.
Mom, I feel like another story I want you to tell is the poison oak story.
Really?
I just feel like if we're talking about respect for things we can't control, I mean.
Yeah, okay. So Terri, were you on the Solvang Century with me one year? I did the Solvang Century. It's in spring. I don't know if you were with me, but because you did most of those rides with me. But anyway, I got off, I had to pee. I got off my bike. I went into the woods next to the road. We were out on, a kind of country, very country road. And I squatted in some weeds to pee. Well, they were, there weren't any leaves. It was early spring, didn't think anything of it. And then got back on my bike. And then a few days later, I went up to the Bay Area to visit some old male roommates. And I started itching in the crotch, like seriously. And then it got worse and I couldn't like stop. It just was like burning and painful. So my friends took me to the emergency room in Oakland. And, they took a look and said it was poison oak. And I realized that that's how I must have gotten it when I squatted in those weeds to pee. And they gave me some kind of cream, but it was just like uncontainable, the pain from that. So I learned my lesson on that. You're not going to always see the 3 leaves that are the telltale sign.
Yeah, I've never heard that story before, Jean. Yikes. Yeah.
And, just know that it can be passed on. So
yes,
watch out.
This was a long time ago in my 20s. And yes, it can be passed on through sexual intercourse to the male body parts. We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, this man got it on his.
I know that. I learned something new today.
Yeah, watch out, everyone.
And that some people like me I've been around a lot of poison oak and I've never had it. So I still respect it, but I think I'm immune to it.
Oh.
But I'm not going to squat in it. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we all have different, peeing strategies. So we gotta watch it. Well, I think maybe our wrap-up question today will be a bit of a 2-parter. One, what is it that keeps you coming back to the outdoors? Like, why are you so appreciative of having access to it? What makes you, love it so much? And then the second is, in what ways do you think that it benefits your well-being, having access to it and enjoying it as a person? They're a bit of the same question, but asked 2 different ways. So feel free to answer it however you see fit.
Well, there are the studies that show that when you're outdoors, you're happier than when you're indoors, when you spend more time outdoors. But yet the statistics show that we spend normally less than 10% of our time outdoors. And I do think about that sometimes. And, usually or very frequently, my highlight of the day is my time outdoors. When I think at the end of the day, it's usually being out for a walk or walking with a friend or running or biking or, something outdoors, hiking. So to me, I guess it's just the joy I get from being outdoors and just feeling my body work and the air in my hair. And I just, I've had so many good moments that, both with friends, family, and just, I don't know, seeing beautiful things that I never get tired of it. It never, it's always new. There's always something new to see and enjoy out there.
Yeah, I think for me, I agree with everything you say, Jean. The older I get, I like to challenge myself and kind of push myself to the edge. And, it gives me a lot of endorphins. I'm on a rowing team, so I row 3 days a week in the morning at 5:30, getting out of bed at 5:30 in the morning and on the lake by 6:30. And usually sometimes at that hour of the morning, I don't like getting up and I'm like, what am I doing here? But every time I get on the lake and just start working out, I never regret that. And it's, I'm rowing sometimes with a group that's from 20 years old to 88, I think is our oldest member. And I'm just so inspired by our 80 pluses that are still out there doing it. And it's just really inspiring to me and makes me want to push myself a little bit more. And it's always, as you get older, just finding that fine line, though, of not hurting yourself or overextending, and still enjoying. And I still think I enjoy that miserably awesome component. I hate the miserable when it's there. And I, like you, Mallory, on our backpacking trip a few years ago, I feel like I'm never going to do this again. Like, why am I doing this? And, it's like kind of like childbirth, and then you come back and do it again. And you forget. Our minds are very good at forgetting the bad and remembering the good. And I think there's just a lot more good and beauty being outdoors than there is bad. And you just have to take the bad along with the good. It's just part and parcel of challenging yourself.
And putting the rose-colored glasses on after a tough trip, and it becomes not as tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to end by relating a moment with Mallory in the outdoors shortly before we met up with Terri and Alex on the John Muir Trail. But it was kind of early on in the trip, and I had dragged Mallory out on this 23-day, backpacking trip down the John Muir Trail. But I didn't really know much at all about backpacking, had never really done any through hiking or, multi-day trips. And Mallory felt a little deceived. I felt a little guilty about that. But, we were doing okay. So, but maybe like a week or so into it, we hiked up this, Tour de Pass, and we decided to camp at this lake. The clouds looked very stormy. So we got to a lake, a flat area, set up our tent, and the storm hit. It was a bad storm. It rained solid, like hail and rain, for 3 hours, maybe more. And we were just sitting on our plastic bags filled with clothes, because there was basically a river running under our tent. And we were just sitting up on these. We were like caboose, train style, just trying to stay above it all, stay kind of dry, keep our important like sleeping bags and things dry in our laps, kind of holding everything up out of the water, and just wondering if we were going to survive this. And when would it end? And, and you're just sitting there like thunder, lightning, you're hearing all this. We'd kind of peek out and see the sky light up. I mean, it was like scary, but, we had no choice but to stay put and wait it out. So eventually the rain stops. We kind of peek out. And there was maybe one other tent there when we arrived. And now we can't believe it. This whole area by the lake is filled with tents, and everyone is crawling out of them like we are, just, a wet mess, shaking things out. There was this huge communal spirit of people helping each other. Oh, let me help you drag your tent, off of that lake, over to a dry area, and, hang up your stuff, or, do you need anything? And we talked to people who had like ran out of their tents in the middle of this and stood under a tree for 2 hours, thinking that would be drier than in their tent. And it was after that storm that I realized, we've got this. We can do it. Like, we survived this. And people that were up there that were more veteran than we were saying, yeah, that's the worst storm I've ever been through. That was a hell of a rain and hail and wind, and just like, and we were close to it. We were like 10,000 feet, and we did it. We survived it. We did as well as anybody else. And for me, that was a big turning point in confidence. And where do you get that sort of thing, other than when you're just out kind of, trying to do your best and taking chances. And yeah, that was just a great feeling that I'll always remember.
I love that, Mom. What? You're muted, Mom. You're muted.
I said, you're no comment on that. You probably don't remember it the same way, but for me, that was a huge turning point.
No. It wasn't a turning point for me. If anything, it triggered my anxiety even more, knowing that something like that could happen. But I do feel like the communal spirit was so beautiful that night. And it was really a sense of camaraderie that, I've never really felt like with complete strangers. So while I don't think it gave me the same confidence that it gave you, I feel like it was a really beautiful moment for me on that trip. So,
Yeah. Okay, good.
yeah, good. Any final thoughts, things that we didn't get to that you want to make sure we touch on before we close? Any final thoughts?
I guess I would just say that I think women are lucky today. There are so many opportunities that, Jean and I were just born into starting those type of opportunities, but there's just a lot of opportunity and things going on. Like I started mountain biking in 1981, right at the beginning of the mountain bike craze when the first stump jumpers came out. And I was living in Phoenix, and Alex and I just both, went into it full time. And I entered some competitions, and I placed in the top 3 in every competition I entered. And that was because there were no more than 3 women in the competition. So I don't really need to tell anybody that, but, it would be a different story for me today. There's a lot of great female athletes out there. And it's, yeah, it's so much different. And, we're so lucky today to have all these opportunities.
Yes, and just to add to that, I can't overemphasize how much bonding and friendship you can, develops during outdoor activities and confidence building, like my episode at Silver Lake. And yeah, it's just, I think it is a time for women to be doing it, and I think it brings them closer together. So it's all good.
I really enjoyed on our backpacking trip being between you two. I feel like I was getting a lot of maternal, badass women energy, and I feel like it really helped me get up the pass. So thank you. Thank you for being that support system when I felt like trash on that trip. So thank you.
You were tough.
Was trying.
We all had our times, Mallory. Jean,
Yeah.
you lifted me up on the last day too. So when I was having a more of a miserable than an awesome day.
Yeah, and that's the other great thing about it is we all help each other because we're all low at different moments and higher at different moments, and yeah, we help each other get through it.
Yeah, the high highs and the low lows. Yeah. Well, I just want to say thank you to both of you for coming on the podcast and being willing to share your stories and your history. And I just want to thank you both as role models in my life. I feel like I don't have a ton of women in my life that are so adventurous and outdoorsy, and it reminds me that I can be like that when I get older as well. So thank you both for that.
Hey, can I add one thing, Mallory? You said
Yes,
something
Terri.
about the high highs and the low lows, and it just made me think it's like, I think that's what makes doing outdoor experiences so amazing, because I think we all get trapped in our jobs and you're kind of living in the middle for a long time, and that creates just boredom and burnout. And I think having those high highs and low lows are really invigorating and to your life.
Yeah, I really feel like there's some beauty in the discomfort, because it does remind you of like I really feel like after the John Muir Trail, it was a reminder of how cushy my life is, and it can be really humbling to experience the low lows and then kind of be reminded that you're capable of handling them. So definitely.
Yeah, it's about the contrast. And if you don't, as you're saying, Terri, if you don't have contrast, then you're always in the middle and it's blah. So yeah, we don't want blah lives.
No.
No. All right. Well, thank you both so much. And thank you all for listening. We will see you next week.
That was fun. Thank you, Mallory.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.